Welcome everyone. So we'll do a little class on Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 5, verse 7. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma Vijitatma Jitendriya Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma Kudvanapi Nalipyate. The one who practice Nishkama Karma Yoga, devotional action offered to the Lord in an unmotivated way, with intelligence and with a pure heart and intelligence, who has controlled his senses, who is an object of affection for all living entities, is not affected by the action even when he acts. Purport. A devotee who practices devotional action offered to the Lord in an unmotivated way becomes gradually purified from all material contaminations. He can then realize that he is the soul, a purely spiritual soul, and perceives the soul in every living entity being of the same spiritual nature. The Lord gives also realization that he accompanies him in his heart and that he is situated in the heart of all living beings. Established in his consciousness, he is never illusioned by a material conception of existence. Shri Krishna being always perceptible to such a devotee, he perceives him in everything and serves him with devotion through his creation. Also, does he see all living entities on a superior plane, and he relates with them in a perfect way. That is the reason why he is loved by all living entities.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachari Nirvishesha Sundhavadi Prachachandi Shatani Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this verse speaks about Nishkama Karma Yoga. The fact of relating with the Supreme Lord through the action that we offer to Him. And this is the basis of our life. When we understand that we can connect with the Lord through action, then we can do everything for Him. There are no limits. Unless we understand this, we are a materialist. What is a materialist? It is someone who thinks that he is separated from the Supreme Lord. When we feel ourselves separated from the Supreme Lord, we are a materialist. Why? Because our desires, they become directed with the fact of satisfying our senses. So, whereas a devotee of the Lord, since he understands he can act for the Lord, he can understand that he can satisfy the Lord through his own action. From there, since he has the possibility to offer a service to the Lord, and Krishna has the possibility to reciprocate with the devotee, then this connection will give him spiritual senses and desires. How does that manifest? Simply, the more the Lord reveals it Himself, and the more the desire to be with Him will be revealed. It is simple. For example, materially, you meet a man or a woman, at some point the attraction comes. When attraction comes, the desire to be with that person, the desire of a proximity, to love, to have a relationship of love, to do something with that person, etc., the desires manifest themselves. You understand? In the same way, when we serve the Lord with feelings, then the desire to be with Him, the desire to love Him in a special way will manifest itself. That is what we call a devotee of the Lord. That means that he has spiritual desires. When the spiritual desires stop, then our spiritual life stops. That is why it is very dangerous for a devotee to cultivate material desires. Because when we desire, as long as we cultivate desires simply connected to the material body, then the relationship with the Lord will distance itself. And the spiritual desires will gradually stop. And when they cease, what happens? We don't want to do service anymore. We prefer to look at the TV, to do this, to do that. And we have a limit in our service. Oh, myself, that's all right. It's my limit. That means we become materialist again, because we become more interested by ourselves than the Supreme Lord. But actually, when we become a pure devotee, there are no limits in our spiritual desires. That is why persons, great devotees of the Lord, they will serve 24 hours a day. There are choices. When we are a mixed devotee, there's a limit. I want to serve you, Krishna, but there's me also. You understand? This is the conception that I am the body. So, on this platform, we cannot attain eternal service to the Supreme Lord. That is not possible. We attain Him when it is a continued service. When Rupa Goswami gives this definition of pure devotion, what does he say? It is an unmotivated service. There's no desire to have something in return, whether they are material fruits, where there is liberation. It is continued with feelings. So that means that we are able to enter the abode of the Supreme Lord. But when we start saying, oh, but myself, I have my limit, that means your next life. It's normal. What would we do in the spiritual world? We would say to Rupa Manjari, I have my limit. It is not made for people like that. It is made for people who want to be devoted and cannot live any other way but in loving the Supreme Lord. So that is why, at the beginning, it is not possible. Nobody can make it in one moment to this perfection. So, when this perfection is not attained, and we are not in a spontaneous devotional service, the feeling does not appear. Feeling brings us to do service. Because the desire, there's an overflow, there is love. When you love someone, you will do whatever for that person to be happy. So when there is love, there is a flow of service. When there's no love, there's no flow of service. There's a limit. So as long as the spontaneous love is not attained, that is normal.
Donc c'est pourquoi
So that is why
il faut une autorité
we need
spirituelle.
a spiritual authority.
Il faut
We need
qu'on nous établisse dans un service.
to be established in a
Parce que par nous-mêmes,
regulated
on
service,
ne pourra
because
pas
on our
s'engager.
own we will not be able to engage
On va avoir
ourselves.
cette limite
We
de
will
reculer,
have this
reculer,
limit more and more that will
reculer.
go
Et
backward
lorsqu'on
and
est
backward and back.
vraiment
And when we are on our
il y
own,
a trop
at
de
some point we are
désirs,
lost.
et on
There's
est peu heureux
too many
dans notre
desires. We have desires and we're not happy in the
C'est ce qui
temple
se
anymore.
passe, en fait.
This is
C'est
what
le piège.
is happening. This is the trap.
C'est le piège. Et on
This
est
is the
peu
trap.
heureux.
We're
Avant,
not
on est
happy
peu
anymore.
heureux
Before
quand
we
il y
were
a beaucoup de
happy, we're doing a lot of
services. Et à un moment, on
services,
est peu heureux.
but at some
Parce
point we're
qu'on
not
se
happy
noie
because we drown
dans une
ourselves
spontanéité
in a
qui n'est pas
spontaneity
pure.
that is not pure.
Et c'est pourquoi il y a
And
beaucoup
that
de
is why
souffrance.
there's a lot of suffering.
Donc, on
So
doit être engagé.
we must be engaged,
Parce que par nous-mêmes, on
because
peut
on
pas
our
être
own
engagé. C'est
we
pour
will
ça
not
qu'on
be
a
able to
besoin
be
d'un
engaged. That's
conseiller.
why we need a spiritual master.
Le maître spirituel,
The
il
spiritual
va dire,
master, he would say,
ta limite,
your limit,
c'est pas une limite correcte.
it's not a proper limit,
Parce que tu commences à
because
prendre plaisir.
you start to take to
Au lieu de
enjoy
donner du plaisir au Seigneur.
instead of giving enjoyment to the
Et
Supreme
tes
Lord.
désirs matériels
And your
commencent
material
à
desires
apparaître.
will start to reappear within you.
Donc si tu continues,
So if you continue,
tu ne pourras pas atteindre la
you
perfection.
will not be able to attain perfection in this lifetime.
Donc le maître spirituel,
So the spiritual master,
il est là pour
he
nous
is
enseigner.
there to teach us.
Et c'est très important.
And it is very important,
Parce qu'un disciple
because
authentique, il
an
va poser la
authentic
question,
disciple, he will ask the question to the Guru, Gurudev,
dis-moi pourquoi je progresse.
tell me why I don't
Le
progress.
disciple authentique, il pose jamais la
The
question.
inauthentic disciple never asks the
Il
question.
veut rester dans sa
He
limite.
wants to stay in his limit, in his comfort.
Vous comprenez?
You understand?
C'est pourquoi
That is
celui
why
qui est dans sa
the one who
limite,
is in his limit,
il va dire aux autres, ah bah, il y
he
a
will
une
say to
limite.
the others, but there's a limit.
Parce que quelque part,
Because somehow
ça reflète sa propre limite.
it reflects his own limit.
Vous comprenez?
You understand?
Et graduellement,
And
tout
gradually,
le monde commence à avoir des limites.
everyone starts to have limits.
Et après, même
And
si
after,
les 50 autant,
even if you are 50, the temple is
les
70,
déités vont toujours
the
avoir
deities
un
will
habillage
always have one dressing per week.
Vous ne pouvez pas accroître.
You cannot
Parce
increase,
que chacun veut
because each
son
one
confort.
wants his comfort.
Vous pourrez avoir plus de dévots,
You can have more
il y a
devotees.
tout qui sortira.
There's nothing more that will come out.
Parce que ceux qui vous
Because
engagent,
those who
ils vont
engage
vous
you,
apprendre leurs limites.
they will teach you their
Donc,
limits,
tu vas tout de suite
and you'll all immediately
te placer dans cette limite.
place you in that limit.
Autant de temps au pas, c'était pas comme ça.
In Prabhupada's time, it was not like that. In Prabhupada's time, there was no limits, so the devotees had no limits.
Mais on n'est plus dans la même génération.
But we're not in the same generation
Parce
also,
que c'était,
because it was
il y a eu des dévots
there were
qui étaient,
devotees
spéciaux,
that were special in these
qui avaient
days.
cette capacité
There was this capacity
de travailler
to work
extrêmement.
extremely hard.
Donc il y a temps,
So,
lieu et circonstances.
There is time, place, and circumstance also.
Le but,
The goal
c'est que chacun
is
puisse
that everyone can
progresser.
progress
Tout en
while
pas trop loin
not going too far in our limits.
C'est pourquoi
That is why a community that becomes balanced
c'est une communauté
is a community
qui peut aussi
that can also
comprendre que
understand
chacun est à
that
des niveaux
each one
différents
is at different levels,
et qu'on doit aussi
and that we must
accepter
also
que
accept
certains dévots
that certain devotees
ne veulent pas progresser,
do not want to progress necessarily,
hein, se donner complètement.
give themselves completely.
D'autres dévots le
Other
veulent.
devotees want it,
Donc il faut harmoniser.
so that we need to harmonize,
Tout le monde, selon
because
les
everyone,
capacités,
according to their previous lives,
a un avancement spirituel.
has a spiritual advancement,
Et tout le monde ne peut pas
and everyone cannot
se donner de la même manière.
give themselves in the same way.
Et ça, c'est quelque chose
And that
de
is something that is important,
Parce que si on veut
because
que
if we want that for everybody to stay,
on doit
we
agir
must
d'une manière
act
intelligente.
in an intelligent way.
Mais le point,
But the point
c'est
is
que lorsqu'on agit
that when we act
pour le Seigneur suprême,
for the Supreme Lord, if we do it truly for Him,
il y a une purification.
there is a purification.
En fait, dans ce
Actually,
verset, Chitudalpana
in this verse, Chatudarpana Marchanam,
le miroir,
the-
le cœur est considéré comme un miroir.
the heart is considered like a mirror.
Quand vous vous regardez dans le
When you
miroir,
look at
vous
yourself in the
pouvez
mirror,
avoir-
you can see your face.
Mais si le miroir,
But if the mirror,
il y a une couche de poussière,
there's a
si la couche de
covering
poussière
of
est
dust,
trop
if the
importante,
covering of dust
là,
is
il
too
devient
important, then the mirror becomes completely
donc,
dead
vous ne pouvez plus vous voir.
and you cannot see yourself anymore.
Donc voir votre
So
réalité
seeing your
et
reality
voir le lien
and seeing
qui vous
the
relie
connection
avec Krishna.
that connects you with Krishna, this is the mirror.
Donc l'action
So
désintéressée
the
offre ses
unmotivated action that we offer to the Lord
elle purifie graduellement
purifies gradually all these particles.
et donc le résultat
And then the result
c'est que nos
is
désirs
that our
matériels
material desires
vont partir
will go away
et vont être remplacés
and
par
will
des
be
désirs
replaced
spirituels.
by spiritual
Donc ça
desires.
prend du temps.
So it takes time.
Srila
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used to say that we need 3 lifetimes
pour que cette dévotion
for
spontanée soit née.
this spontaneous devotion to manifest.
Une vie en tant que Kanishta Bhakta,
A life as a Kanishta Bhakta,
Madhyam Bhakta et Uttama.
Madhyam Bhakta and Uttama Bhakta.
C'est pourquoi
That is why
c'est pas si simple.
it is not so simple to progress.
Certains pratiquent,
Certain practice
font beaucoup d'efforts,
make a lot of effort,
mais ils ne ressentent pas.
but they do not necessarily feel that they progress.
Alors il y a toujours un progrès.
There's always a progress, of course, but
Les anarthas,
the anarthas,
les choses indésirables
the
dans le cœur,
unwanted things in the
c'est pas
heart,
quelque chose qui part
it's
facilement.
not something that goes away easily.
Ça part
It goes
pas
away
par notre propre
through
force,
our own strength,
mais
but
par l'abandon.
it doesn't go away out of our own strength, but out of surrender.
C'est pourquoi quelle est la
That is
différence
why, what is the difference
entre ces trois
in between
niveaux
these
de
3 levels of devotees?
C'est l'abandon.
It is surrender, Sharanagati.
Le premier,
The first,
c'est pas un abandon de cœur.
it is not a surrender, a heartfelt surrender. There's an external
Et
aspect,
intérieurement,
but internally,
il y a beaucoup de désirs
there are a lot of desires
pour se quereller,
to quarrel,
pour vouloir une position.
to desire a position.
Il y a de l'envie.
There is envy.
Le deuxième,
The second,
il y a la fixité.
there's fixity.
Il y a le désir spirituel.
There is the spiritual
Mais
desire,
il n'est pas forcément
but it is not necessarily
complètement lié
completely
à la
connected
réalité éternelle.
with the eternal reality.
Dans un premier temps, il est
First,
lié
it is
à
connected
un aspect externe
to
d'être un
an
dévot,
external aspect of being a devotee and being identified to be with a devotee. And we will give our life because we cannot be anything else but a devotee.
Donc ça, c'est mieux.
So this is better.
Bien sûr,
Of course,
de cette position, on va
from
développer
this
un goût.
position, we will develop a spiritual taste.
C'est-à-dire qu'on n'aura pas
That
de
means that we will not have taste to associate with people who have not connection with
On
Krishna,
va aimer
but we will
s'associer avec
love
les dévots.
to associate with devotees.
On va aimer
We will
écouter
love
de la musique
to listen
dévotionnelle.
to devotional
On
music.
va aimer faire du
We will love
service de dévotion.
to do devotional
Et
service,
on n'a pas d'attrait
and we
pour faire autre
don't
chose
have
que ça.
attraction to do anything else but service.
Ce qui va donner,
Those which will give,
et à partir de là, Krishna
that from
va
there,
réciproquer beaucoup plus
Krishna
avec.
will reciprocate much more with
Et
us.
ça va très loin.
And it goes very far.
Ça va jusqu'à
It goes up to a Shakti.
Et à Shakti.
And a Shakti,
Srila,
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that we are so much disconnected from the material world that we cannot even put our mind in the material world. We become simply absorbed in the beauty of Braj, of the pastimes. Well, of course,
c'est un état où on peut déjà
it is a state where we can already go back to Krishna,
parce que Krishna est miséricordieux.
because Krishna is merciful.
Si on pourrait pas retourner
Because if we couldn't go back to Krishna at that level,
on n'a pas beaucoup de chance.
not many will have any luck.
Même avant,
Even before,
retourner à Krishna.
we can go back to Krishna.
Celui qui a abandonné
The one who is
le
surrendered
service
to the service,
déité.
to the deity.
Mais
But
le troisième stade,
the
c'est un
third
stade
stage
très élevé.
is a stage that is very
On se
elevated,
libère
where we liberate
de
ourselves
l'identification
from identification to the material
au
body,
corps subtil
and
de
the subtle
l'esprit,
body becomes destroyed,
où l'être vivant
where
peut
the living entity can completely
se glisser dans sa réalité éternelle.
slide into his eternal reality.
Donc, bien sûr,
So, of course, when we're at the first level, it seems so far away.
c'est tellement,
It's so far away
parce qu'on est toujours avec nos
because
problèmes,
we're always with our problems,
avec nos désirs,
with our desires,
Et nos désirs sont
and
tellement
our
forts
desires are so strong
qu'ils
that
nous emportent, quoi.
they carry us
On n'a pas
away.
la force
We do not have the strength,
spirituelle
the
pour
spiritual
lutter contre
strength
ces désirs.
to struggle
Mais ça
against
n'empêche
these
pas qu'on est
desires,
un
to
dévot.
fight. But it doesn't stop that we are a devotee.
Donc le point, c'est
So the
que
point is,
on doit continuer
we must
à
continue
étudier
to study
et pas simplement
and not
se dire je
simply
connais tout
say, I know everything.
et j'ai fait le tour.
I have
Sans ça, là, ça
I've
s'arrête
gone
là.
around everything. Otherwise it
Ça,
stops.
c'est la limite, c'est
This
fini.
is the limit,
C'est-à-dire
it
que
stops.
vraiment, on va
It
revenir
means
dans les
really,
prochaines vies.
we will go back in the next
Une
life.
fois qu'on est là,
Once we're there, we have gone around and
on a
we
donné,
have given
10 ans de ma vie,
10 years of my
20 ans,
life now.
voilà, là, c'est fini.
Then it's finished. We go back.
Alors, c'est pas bon.
This is not good.
Si vous commencez
If you
à
start
vivre
just living
votre vie, ça y est.
your little life, it's not going to work.
Mais
But
on peut avoir parfois
we can
des
have
décalages
sometimes,
spirituels. C'est normal.
we can have difficulties in our spiritual life. Sometimes it's normal.
C'est dur. Bon,
Sometimes it is hard. So
c'est des fois, c'est
sometimes it's like,
il y a
whoa,
une sorte de fatigue.
there's a kind of fatigue.
Ça peut arriver aussi.
It can happen also,
Une sorte de pause.
a type of
Mais
pause.
dans cette pause-là, on peut
And
pas
in,
être
but
heureux.
in this pause, we cannot be happy also.
Donc,
So
si on retrouve
if
une inspiration,
we find back our
on
inspiration,
peut reprendre
then we can start again.
l'énergie.
Receive back our energy and continue.
Et là, c'est très important
And there it's very important
de
to
revenir dans les instructions que nos acharyas nous ont données.
go back into the instructions that our acharyas have given us.
Et
And
dans cet enthousiasme
in
spirituel,
this spiritual enthusiasm,
effectuer notre service.
perform
avec de la
our
dévotion
service
et de
with
l'amour.
devotion and love.
C'est très important.
It is really
Mettre des
important.
sentiments.
Put feelings.
Et c'est ça qui manque. En fait.
And this is what is lacking actually.
Parce que Krishna,
Because Krishna
il réciproque avec l'amour.
reciprocates with
Donc,
love.
quand on enlève l'amour,
So when we take away love, there's no more connection.
parce qu'en fait,
Because actually,
on va mettre nos
we will
sentiments
put our feelings,
placés différemment.
we will place our feelings differently.
Mais
But
quand on place notre
when we
sentiment en
place
Krishna,
our feeling in Krishna,
alors Krishna
then
réciproque.
Krishna reciprocates.
Pourquoi on ressent
Why
cette réciprocité?
We don't feel this
Parce que
reciprocation
il y a
anymore.
plus de sentiments.
It is because we don't put feelings anymore in what we do.
Et c'est pas évident,
And it is
c'est
not
une forme
easy
de
because it
piège.
is a form of trap.
Par exemple,
For example,
certains dévots
certain devotees
au
experience
début,
at the beginning of their spiritual life a lot of mercy from Krishna.
beaucoup.
A lot.
Et après, moi.
And after less.
C'est pas que Krishna est moins
It's not that Krishna is less
C'est qu'au
merciful.
début, notre attitude
It is that because at the beginning our attitude is different. I self-remember when I was a new devotee, I was only seeing pure devotees everywhere.
Et puis graduellement, on commence
And
à
then
voir
gradually we start to see faults in others.
Donc à partir de là,
So from there,
on est moins bien disposé.
we're less well
On est dans
disposed
une forme de jugement.
because we are in a form
Et
of
puis,
judgment.
du coup, on voit les fautes,
And then
on
we
voit
see
ceci,
faults,
on
we
voit
see this, we see that.
quelque chose, et puis on
We question
on va
things and then we go
d'une bonne attitude.
far away
Et le
from a good
résultat,
attitude.
c'est qu'on est moins-
And then the result is that we're less happy.
moins
There is less,
de sentiments dévotionnels.
there are less devotional
On
feelings.
repense
And we
à
think
cette période qu'on avait vécue.
at this period that we lived, experienced before. That's why the experience is important.
Alors ça peut être au début, ça
Well,
peut
it can
être
be at the beginning, it could be at the middle.
mais il y a
There's,
toujours un
but
moment
there's
dans la
always a
vie
moment in
où on
spiritual
se
life
sentait mieux.
where we felt better.
Et où on perd
And when we lose
cette expérience.
this experience,
Mais si on est intelligent,
but if we are intelligent,
on va méditer.
we will
On a
meditate
la possibilité. Krishna,
because we have the possibility,
Krishna peut nous donner
because
cette
Krishna can
intelligence
give us this intelligence to understand
plus.
why we tasted more before.
C'est très intéressant.
It is very interesting why we tasted more.
Et on voit
And we
qu'il
see
était simple.
that we were simple.
C'est surtout cette simplicité.
It's especially the simplicity.
On était comme un enfant.
We were like a child that discovered
La vérité.
the truth.
Et maintenant, on est comme
And now we're like an old person
parce qu'il a tout vu.
that thinks that we saw everything. That's the difference.
Il faut retrouver cette simplicité.
We have to find back this simplicity.
Super.
It's super important.
Et
And
c'est ça l'analyse.
this is the analysis.
Comment j'étais avant,
How was I
comment
before?
je suis maintenant.
And how am I now?
Et on peut
And
comprendre,
we
parce que
can
c'est nous
understand.
qui avons eu l'expérience.
Because we had the experience before. It is us.
Donc, on
So,
peut comprendre
we can understand this lag
et revenir.
and come back.
Mais c'est pas facile,
But it's not easy
parce que ce désir matériel
because these material desires
cultivé,
that we cultivated, they
et ça,
are forbidding us, they do not want. This is the reality. Can you believe it?
sandwich, là,
I have my sandwich, I have this, I have my small plant, I have this.
on s'est mis dans quelque chose
We put ourselves in something
qui est un piège des
that is
plaisirs.
a trap of pleasures with Krishna,
Mais on prend plaisir.
but we take pleasure.
Donc le point, c'est qu'il faut
So
revenir
the point
dans
is that
une vie
we have to come back into a life
où on va mettre
where we
Krishna
will
en premier.
put Krishna first,
Et là,
and
l'expérience
then
change.
the experience will come back.
C'est pourquoi
That is why
Nishkama Karma Yoga,
Nishkama Karma
c'est ce
Yoga,
principe
it is that principle
de mettre Krishna en premier.
of putting Krishna in
Parce qu'on n'est
first,
pas pur.
because we're
On
not
peut pas
pure.
avoir la
We
dévotion
cannot
spontanée,
have spontaneous
mais on
devotion,
doit
but we must
agir pour son
act
plaisir.
for His
Et
pleasure.
là, de nouveau,
And then again,
l'expérience revient.
the experience comes back.
Et si elle s'est arrêtée,
But if the experience stopped,
ça veut dire que
that means that
il y a un problème en nous.
there's a problem within us.
Et ça peut être résolu
And
que par nous,
it can be resolved only by us,
pas en ajoutant du plaisir.
not by adding pleasure.
C'est pourquoi,
That is why,
à un certain moment, dans la
at
vie
certain
du
point in the life of a devotee,
c'est un choix.
it is a choice.
Est-ce que je me place dans cette limite?
Do I place myself in this
Je ne peux
limit,
plus progresser dans cette
where
vie?
I will not be able to
Je
progress
passe
anymore in
le
this
aussi
life?
parce que comme je
And
veux
also,
progresser,
since I don't want to
faut-
progress anymore,
je peux
then
pas- si je dis aux autres de
if
pas
I tell
avoir de
others to not have their
limite,
limits,
je suis en contre-foi avec moi-même.
I'm against
Donc,
myself.
j'ai une limite, respecte
So
aussi
I have a
les limites
limit.
des autres.
I respect also the limits of others. You understand?
Là,
From there,
on va vivre dans un
we will
espace
live in a
où
space
tout le monde va
where
développer
everyone will
des
develop
désirs
desires,
matériels,
material desires,
et
and
cette dévotion va
devotion
graduellement se
will
faire.
gradually go away.
Krishna va être délaissé.
Krishna will be neglected.
Vous serez 50.
You'll be 50, 60, 70.
Krishna sera pas mieux.
Krishna will not be better worshipped.
Donc c'est des choix.
So these are choices.
Mais il ne peut pas avoir l'expérience de
But
Krishna
there cannot
sans
be
blesse Krishna.
the experience of Krishna without the taste for Krishna.
C'est pas possible.
It's not possible.
Si vous délaissez Krishna,
If you neglect Krishna,
alors Krishna
then
est
Krishna
réciproque.
cannot reciprocate anymore. And this is for everybody.
C'est comme ça.
It is like that.
Donc ça c'est personnel.
So this is personal.
On ne peut pas accuser
We
les
cannot
autres,
accuse others,
mais on
but
peut
we can
changer notre
change
façon de vivre,
our way of living
dépasser nos limites.
and surpass our limits always,
Juste
just
en aimant Krishna.
by loving Krishna.
Et ça c'est quelque chose qui est important.
And this is something that is important, but
On ne peut pas non plus l'imposer.
we cannot also impose it upon others.
On doit avoir une
That is why we must have a form of balance in the
Parce que
community,
tout le monde est différent.
because everyone is different, everyone is at different levels. That is why we must live together
Une harmonie
in a harmony
avec une
with
organisation,
an organization,
des règles,
with
pour
rules,
qu'on puisse
so that we can continue all
C'est ça qui est
together.
important.
This is what is important.
C'est ça notre challenge
This is our challenge
pour Prabhupada, pour
for Prabhupada, for Krishna.
de permettre à tout le monde.
It's to allow for everybody to go up to the end.
Mais
But
on ne peut pas
we cannot
enseigner cette limite.
teach this limit,
Parce qu'à ce moment-là,
because at that
on
point,
n'aura plus la possibilité
we will not have the
de pouvoir
possibility
dépasser.
to be able to surpass.
Donc on ne doit pas enseigner la
So we must not teach
mixte.
mixed action.
On doit enseigner la pure dévotion.
We must teach
Et
pure
dans cette
devotion.
pure dévotion,
And in this pure
comme dit ce
devotion,
verset,
just like this verse is saying,
puisque
since
connexion
the
avec
connection
le Seigneur
with the
suprême
Supreme Lord is in the
on
heart,
devient l'ami des amis.
we become the friend of living entities because we can understand also
Quelqu'un a besoin.
what someone needs.
On ne sera pas dur,
We will not be harsh,
mais
but
en même temps,
at the same time,
on va pas
we will not also
condamner les personnes
condemn
à pouvoir
people
progresser.
not being able to
Et
progress.
ça, c'est important.
And this is important.
C'est pourquoi,
That is why
plus vous aurez une
the
limite,
more you will have a limit,
et plus vous accepterez ça
and
comme
the more
but de votre
you will
vie,
accept that as the goal of your life,
plus vous enseignerez cette
the
limite.
more you will teach this limit to the
Mais
others.
si vous acceptez la pure
But if you
dévotion
accept
dans
pure
votre vie,
devotion in your
même
life,
si vous avez une limite
even if you have
physiquement,
like a limit
la vie,
physically
par
in
exemple,
illness, for example,
parce que tout le monde doit
because
vieillir,
everyone must age,
vous ne serez pas un frein pour les autres.
you will not be a break for others.
C'est très important.
It's very important.
La pure dévotion,
Pure devotion,
elle n'est pas limitée
it is not
à la
limited
maladie.
to illness.
C'est un sentiment.
It is a feeling.
Vous pouvez être dans une chaise
You can
roulante,
be in a
avoir que
wheelchair,
les pieds qui bougent,
only have your eyes that are moving, not even the hands,
même pas les pieds,
not even the feet,
et avoir de l'amour.
and have love.
Il n'y a pas de limite.
There are no limits.
Personne ne peut vous
Nobody
empêcher d'avoir de l'amour.
can stop you from having love except you.
C'est pourquoi
That is why
cette limite,
this limit
c'est pas le corps.
is not the body.
Cette limite, c'est le monde
This limit is the mind,
qui nous fait croire
which makes us believe
qu'on ne pourra jamais y arriver.
that we will never be able to make
Et
it,
qu'on est cette limite.
and that we are this limit.
C'est pourquoi Srila Prabhupada,
That is why Srila Prabhupada,
ou Krishna dans la
or Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita explains
mental, il peut être
that the mind can be the enemy
ou l'ami.
or the friend.
Quelle est la définition
What is the definition?
lorsqu'il est un ami?
When he is a friend.
En fait, Srila Prabhupada explique
Actually, Srila Prabhupada
que
explains
servant Krishna,
that by serving Krishna,
hein, le mental va être attiré
the mind will be attracted
par le goût
by the
qui est
taste
généré dans le
that is
service.
generated in devotional
Et à ce
service.
moment-là, le mental
And then
lui-même
the mind itself desires
servir Krishna.
to
À ce
serve
moment-là,
Krishna,
il devient-
and then it becomes a friend.
C'est quelque chose qui vient avec le
It is something that comes with time.
temps. On doit être aussi patient
But we must also be patient,
parce que c'est difficile.
because it is difficult.
Toutes les situations
All
dans le monde
situations in the
matériel,
material world are difficult.
vous ne trouverez pas une situation facile.
You will not find an easy situation.
Mais la
But
différence,
the difference
c'est que lorsque vous
is
êtes
that
dans une
when
situation
you
avec
are
Krishna,
in a
avec les
situation
dévots de
with
Satan,
Krishna, with the devotees of
elle
the
vous
Lord,
permet
it allows
au
you
minimum de renaître comme un dévot.
minimum to take birth as a devotee
Pas
again
apprendre les réactions
and
de
not
vos actes.
receive the reactions of your actions. Even Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that all the other paths,
La voie du karma,
the path of karma,
l'action intéressée,
of fruitive activity, the path of Gyan,
de vouloir la libération.
of wanting, desiring liberation, when you do not attain the goal
Vous, et que vous arrêtez
and that you stop
dans cette pratique,
in this
vous devez
practice,
prendre les réactions de vos actes après dans la vie.
you must receive the reactions of your actions after in your next life. But it explains that even if a devotee in this life stops and
commet des choses
he commits
impies,
sinful
il
activities,
n'a pas à les payer dans sa vie.
he doesn't have to pay them in this next life, and he takes birth again as a devotee.
C'est ça qui est extraordinaire.
This is what is extraordinary in a path of devotion, because since you have served Krishna materially,
Vous n'oubliez jamais.
Krishna never forgets you.
Donc, il y a un gain qui est énorme.
So there's a gain that is enormous,
Parce qu'on ne peut pas
because we
sortir de
cannot
ce
come out of this world
sans redevenir.
without becoming
Le
free,
Seigneur nous a manifesté
because the
son
Lord
plaisir.
manifested this for His pleasure.
Et donc,
And so,
si on regarde bien,
if we look closely,
on fait les mêmes choses.
we do the same thing,
Mais mieux.
but
On
better.
a des festins tous les jours.
We have feast every day here.
Et notre vie,
And our life,
c'est une vie qui
it's
est
a life that is sublime.
Parce que quand vous êtes
Because when you're a materialist,
moi j'ai eu
I had
des moments de ma vie
moments of my life
où il fallait que je me lève le matin,
where I had to wake up in the morning to go to work.
t'as pas envie d'y aller, c'est difficile.
You don't want to go, it's difficult. It's hard to work.
Ça dure 7 à 8 heures.
It lasts 7 to 8 hours per day.
Ça m'arrivait de travailler
In restaurants, I will work 15 hours per day.
juste le temps de dormir, manger.
Just the time of sleeping, eating, and going to work.
Et finalement, quand vous
And
rentrez,
finally, when you come back
vous allez
home,
faire les courses.
you have to do the shopping.
C'est pas que tout
It's not that everything is done.
Il y a une autre vie qui vient.
There's another life that comes.
Alors qu'ici, si
Whereas
on
here,
regarde,
if you look closely,
la cuisine est prête,
the kitchen is ready, the
il y a
cooking.
beaucoup de facilités.
There are a lot of facilities.
On a facilité.
We live in constant facility, easy. We don't have problems for our bills of electricity. We don't have problems for our future.